The lovely folks at Found North were gracious enough to send me a sample of their latest release. Now, is this a bottle that you should go and get? Let's find out. Welcome back to the Bourbon Retriever, and today we're reviewing Found North's latest release, the Peregrine 21 year. I don't really quite know how to pronounce it. I think it is some type of bird. If you are a bird expert, let me know how you're supposed to pronounce this word. I am absolutely miserable at pronouncing words. My dad has actually become an avid bird watcher, so maybe he'll let me know. I think that's just something you do as you get older. You either get into Civil War, trains, birds, and he just happened to get a bird, so that is probably in my future. But this release is a callback to, I think 2 or 3 years ago, they released the same title, the Peregrine bottle, but it was a 20 year, and this is their high altitude series. So this is basically where they take a bunch of whiskey, blend it together, then put it in finishing barrels, and then after it is aged in the finishing barrel, they reblend it together to get their final product. And I think this is how distilleries, whiskey places should be blending their whiskey, because a lot of times when you finish it in that secondary barrel, it can either get too light or too heavy on the finish. So if you can finish it, if you can blend it after the finishing process, you're gonna get a much better product. So the finishing barrels on this project are both ex-cognac barrels and actually new American oak. The first release of this, I wanna say, is 40% cognac, 60% cognac, 40% American oak, and this release altered it slightly, and now it's 70% cognac and 30% American oak, so you expect a lot more of that cognac flavor to be coming through on this batch. So there's some pretty old whiskey in this blend. We have 25-year-old, 24 and 23-year-old corn, and we also have 24 and 21-year-old rye. The final mash bill on this is 78% corn, 21% rye, and 1% malted barley. So this is a pretty limited release. They had 3,420 bottles for this release, but if this is something that you're interested in getting, I'm a little late in getting this review out, but go and check out their listserv, go on their website and sign up to be part of the newsletter, because I think they're doing it right. They're saving a majority, I don't know if it's majority, a significant part, more and more of each release is going into the people who are part of their listserv. And I think that is the way to do it. You're basically supporting the people who love your brand the most. Each person gets one. You don't have a lot of people hoarding bottles. In addition, just with how hard it is distribution across the United States, some states do not carry certain bottles because you have to go through that 3-tier system, and then it can be hard for smaller brands to get into every state. So be able to get it through online from the website, I think it's great. So I poured this bottle before I started taping. Typically, this is one point when I pour it into the glass. However, when they sent the media release, they mentioned that this bottle should sit open for 30 minutes before you drink it. And that kind of makes sense to me just because of the finishing barrels. Typically, when you give more air to finished products, the finishing notes come out a little more. So I want to respect them for sending me the sample, and I want to drink it how they told me is the best way to try it. So this has been sitting out for 30 minutes. But with that, let's go ahead and jump into the review. Cheers. And I have to tell you, I think they're onto something, because this is much better than when I fresh cracked this. This is my second time going to this pour, and the first time it was a lot more muted and flat, and the oak notes, the new American oak, are coming through a lot more. When I first opened it, the cognac was much more prevalent than the American oak, but now the American oak is definitely coming on there. Yeah, the amount of oak I'm getting this, I would not guess a Canadian whiskey. For you who don't know, Canadian whiskey doesn't have the same laws as bourbon. It doesn't need to be aged in a new American oak barrel that has been charred. So a lot of whiskey from Canada is super high aged, but it doesn't taste like a super high aged bourbon. Yeah, I'm really digging that aroma. Nice oak notes, not over oaked. The cognac is coming on the background to give a nice little sweet fruitiness to it, but the cognac isn't as pungent as I thought it'd be. Since they upped the cognac on this barrel, I thought I would be getting a lot more cognac, but that American oak is still shining through. Let's go ahead and jump into the palate. Even though that cognac is not on the aroma, it is all dominant through the palate. I'm getting a ton of that cognac fruit sweetness right in the middle of that palate. Okay, actually now going back to the aroma after drinking it, I'm getting a lot more of that cognac on the aroma. And this happens sometimes. I highly recommend you to smell the whiskey after you take a couple sips, because you'll get some of those tastes on your tongue, and it will affect your smelling senses. I'm not a doctor. I don't know all the science behind it, but somehow the taste interacts with your nose, and it will change the aroma that you're getting. Yeah, this really just coats your mouth. I was not expecting that on this whiskey. I don't typically get this richness from Found North or any Canadian products. They're typically very light, thin, just roll over your mouth. But this is a nice viscosity to it that I just was not expecting at all. The finish of this is a good finish. I'm getting a lot of like a caramel brittle to it. It's not bitter, but it's almost like eating like a nice piece of brittle. In the front of this is a ton of fruit. It's almost like a fruit basket. I'm getting the plum, cherry, maybe a strawberry, no orange, maybe a clementine. There's just a ton of flavors on the front end there. Like you're literally eating like a fruit basket. And in the middle there, it turns into a little bit of a cinnamon. I was not expecting the cinnamon at all on this, but like in the mid-palate, there's a little bit of a spike of cinnamon. And maybe a little bit of allspice there too on the back end. But yeah, recapping it, starts a nice fruit basket, tons of fruit, very predominant. Then it's a very creamy, viscous mouthfeel that transitions into that little bit of cinnamon, allspice, and then the back end, I'm getting a lot of that peanut brittle, caramel brittle, kind of like nice little lingering finish. Yeah, that's a really good pour. That might actually be my favorite Found North that I have ever had. Okay, my final thoughts. This bottle, it is rather expensive. It is a $225 product. This is not a base level product that you're just gonna burn through. This is one that you're gonna pour, have with some friends, relax, get a lot of the notes out of it. But to be honest, I am not a big Canadian whiskey fan because you don't get a lot of those deep, rich caramels, deep oak notes that you typically get from bourbons. But this Found North product is special. Found North, they make the best blends of Canadian whiskey. I don't know, I would love to talk to the master blender there because they do literally the best job. I bet you that Canadian whiskey before they do the finishing blending is probably awful. Every other Canadian product I've ever had has been horrendous. And the fact that they are able to blend it, finish it, and make it this type of product, it just blows my mind. Now, all previous Found North products, I've enjoyed them. The $200 price point has always been tough for me, and I've recommended people who haven't got into Canadian whiskey to try them at bars because of that high price point. But this is probably the first Found North product that I am recommending people to buy a full bottle of. Now, I know the lottery is coming on, so that's gonna be hard to get, but there will be some national distribution. So talk to your local liquor store, see if this is a bottle you can get, because I think this is probably the best Canadian whiskey that I've ever had. But to fully appreciate this bottle, you have to do what they said, pour it out, let it sit for 30 minutes. Because if you do a fresh crack of this, you're not gonna get any of those flavors that I was talking about. I didn't get any of them. It was very thin, but letting it sit out for 30 minutes, I don't know exactly all the science behind it, but it got a ton more flavors in there and it made a much more enjoyable drink. So that's my review of the latest release from Found North. If you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button that we don't miss any more content, and also check out the video some up here. And until next time, cheers.